After the success of SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, Nickelodeon once again partnered with Heavy Iron Studios to create the next SpongeBob game, which would be a tie-in to the upcoming film, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Let's briefly talk about that. I used to watch this movie constantly. I've seen it so many times that I can practically recite the entire thing word for word. It was my favorite movie as a kid, and upon rewatching it, I have to say, it's just as awesome as I remember. It takes the best aspects of the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob and combines them with awe-inspiring animation and an extended runtime to create an excellent film that I still find myself watching, enjoying, and laughing at to this day. The film released on November 14th, 2004, and the game was released just a couple weeks earlier, in late October, just like the last game. As a follow-up developed by the same studio, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game shares a lot of similarities with Battle for Bikini Bottom, but did it expand upon what it borrowed and create an even better game, or did it not quite live up to its predecessor? Well, upon replaying the game for this video and trying to figure this one out, I've come to the conclusion that the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game is just as good as SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Not better, nor worse. If you haven't seen my Battle for Bikini Bottom video yet, I do recommend you watch it before watching this, for that game will be heavily referred to in this video. Before we get too in depth, it's critical to understand that SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom is a game based on the SpongeBob television series, while the SpongeBob movie game is a tie-in to the SpongeBob movie film, and though the film was based on the series, the game wasn't. It's vital to understand that before we move forward, so with that cleared up, I can begin my argument. So, the plot's identical to that of the film, which is great. What's not great is how it's presented to the player. You see, there's 2 different styles of cutscene. First, the slideshow cutscene. They're a mix of frames from the film and images Heavy Iron made to fill the gaps, which can look hilariously terrible at times, and overall, I really don't like them. The screenshots must have been a nice treat for those who played the game before the film's release, but retrospectively, it wasn't a very good choice. They feel rushed, almost cheap. The other style is the in-game cutscene, which I definitely prefer. They're just as high quality as last time, I just wish there were more of them. Movements are very fluid and cartoony, and the character models look great. The only downgrades with these cutscenes is in the lighting and the color palette. There are tons of weird lighting issues sprinkled about, and some of the areas have really odd color palettes. There is an upgrade, however, in voice acting. All the voice actors from the last game are here, with the addition of Clancy Brown. Mr. Krabs can finally have his proper voice, and it sounds great.
When the customer took a bite, no cheese! Oh, this has never happened before!
They even got Jeffrey Tambor and Scarlett Johansson from the movie to play their roles as King Neptune and Mindy, respectively.
And now to thank the brave heroes who recovered my crown and saved Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob and Patrick, you have performed a manly deed.
I'm so proud of you.
The only voice actor missing is Alec Baldwin as Dennis, so they instead had Fred Tatasciore do the voice, and he does a pretty good job.
Don't worry, this'll only hurt a lot! Don't worry, this'll only hurt a lot!
The overall presentation isn't as good as in Battle for Bikini Bottom, but if you're looking to experience the plot, you're going to be watching the film, so it doesn't harm the experience at all. Anyways, let's address some of the elephants in the room. For starters, the lack of a hub world, which has really turned a lot of people off, and I can certainly see why, but the lack of a hub world shouldn't necessarily lower the quality of a game. Now, I'm not saying that I didn't like the hub world in Battle for Bikini Bottom, it was awesome, but the main function of a hub world is to act as a central area that connects the other areas in the game, so my question is this: where would said area be? In the SpongeBob movie film and the game, SpongeBob and Patrick travel from Bikini Bottom to Shell City, point A to point B. There's no central area. A hub world can exist in a game that progresses like this, and thus you can't say the game is worse due to the lack of one. It wouldn't work. In Battle for Bikini Bottom, you are exploring the world of the SpongeBob television series, visiting all your favorite locales from the show, and there's a clear central area, the Bikini Bottom suburbs, and it works great for that game, but without that central area it is impossible. Instead of a hub world, the pause menu allows you to warp to any objective of any area, assuming you've previously been there, just like the taxi service last time, and it works well, I have no complaints. This concept of linearity leads to the next main difference most favor Battle for Bikini Bottom for: level design. In Battle for Bikini Bottom, robots were wreaking havoc across the town, so the main objective was to rid the town of the robots, collecting golden spatulas as you go to eventually gain access to the Chum Bucket lab and stop the problem at its source, so the game required you to explore each area and destroy all the robots, so open world were kind of a given. In the SpongeBob movie game, however, the story once again limits what they could do. They're traveling from point A to point B, so the end of one area has to in some way lead to the start of the next, which is incredibly restricting both in creativity and how open-ended they could make these levels. Their solution works pretty well though. While level progression is more linear, each area is sprinkled with small side paths that each have their own objectives, which is nice. And the main paths themselves are really well designed, and in a lot of cases in the latter half of the game, extremely challenging. One of Battle for Bikini Bottom's biggest weaknesses was its difficulty and the lack thereof, and the movie game steps it up significantly and requires a lot more skillful platforming. The most notorious of these areas is Planktopolis, which is seriously difficult. Like, even if you consider yourself to be good at platform games, this level will give you a run for your money. It's good fun. However, this linearity severely limits the character switching puzzle solving. The character specific abilities are used, but not really to solve any puzzles. The levels are broken up into imaginary sections, each of which are designed around either SpongeBob or Patrick's abilities. When you finish one section, you'll switch characters to take on the next section, which is centered around their unique abilities. And speaking of characters, another seemingly major downgrade from the previous game is the inclusion of only 2 characters, rather than 3, and this cut character was actually my favorite to play as previously. That's right, Sandy is no longer playable, which really sucks, but they had to remain faithful to the source material. Sandy only had a few small cameos in the movie, so making her a playable character wouldn't make much sense. It's a shame, but they did try to make up for it by giving Patrick a few additional abilities. His belly slam is replaced with a spin attack, he can swing from floating ice cubes similar to how Sandy could swing from Texas icons, and he can now do a cartwheel that makes getting around super efficient, which is by far his greatest upgrade. These additions make Patrick, by far, my preferred character to play as this time around. He's debatably as fun to play as Sandy was last time. They even implemented an upgrade system this time around. Rather than shiny objects from the previous game, manliness points are scattered around the world, and when you collect a certain amount, you'll be able to upgrade one of your abilities, which is super cool. So even though the game is lacking Sandy as a playable character, I think they did plenty to make up for her removal. But this game's biggest flaw is one I'm unable to defend. Artificial lengthening via forced backtracking. Throughout your playthrough, your progression is constantly halted by Mindy, who explains you're short on Goofy Goober tokens and can't move on until you get the required amount. Okay, that doesn't sound so bad. The last game wouldn't let you access new areas without a certain number of golden spatulas, but the main difference between the two once again comes down to linearity. Battle for Bikini Bottom has you exploring open worlds and collecting as many golden spatulas as you can find. If you're short on a couple, you can just go back and explore a little deeper into an area you kinda skimmed through. Out of the 100 total golden spatulas in the game, you only needed a generous 75 to access the final boss, which is great. And the movie game tries to do a similar thing as far as minimum requirements go. To gain access to the final boss, you need 50 Goofy Goober tokens out of the 68 total, which is roughly 74%. But again, due to linearity and the lack of enough tokens to collect on the main path, tokens are tucked away in several challenges. Combat challenges, platforming challenges, Sonic Wave challenges, and some others, which can range from, oh, this is fun, to why am I playing a SpongeBob game when I can be playing Spider-Man for PS4? You know how sliding sections were some of the most enjoyable moments in the previous game? Well, this time around, the mechanic is fully fleshed out and has levels dedicated to it, and these are super fun. At least the first two are. The last one is a little annoying, but all three maintain this epic feeling of adventure, which I nearly entirely credit to the music. They somehow managed to top the previous game's sliding music, and it's incredible. The game also introduces an entirely different gameplay style, driving, which also gets its own stages. These are nowhere near as good as the sliding levels. The paddy wagon is really stiff to control and overall feels a bit off, but that's most likely because the paddy wagon is a circular vehicle and controlling it is fairly different than controlling the more rectangular vehicles we're used to. Since sliding and driving sections are their own separate stages, they needed to have multiple tokens in them like the main stages, so their solution was to reward you with more for completing time trials and ring challenges. The time trials are nothing terrible, but the ring challenges are awful. The game only shows you one ring ahead at a time, so it's impossible to account for where the next one will be and adjust accordingly, which means you'll be dying a lot and being forced to restart the level over and over again, slowly inching your way toward the finish, which wouldn't be that bad if the levels were a minute, maybe 2 minutes long, but no, some of these sliding and driving levels can take close to 5 minutes, which is insane. But as far as major flaws are concerned, that's it. None of those are anywhere near detrimental. The SpongeBob movie game is just a linear version of Battle for Bikini Bottom, and while sure, the artificial lengthening is an inexcusable offense that slightly lowers my enjoyment of a playthrough, the game can't be shunned and labeled inferior because of it. Nearly everything imported from Battle for Bikini Bottom was improved, and as far as replay value is concerned, I'm more likely to pick up and play the movie game despite its shortcomings and annoyances. Sure, the locations are more fleshed out and fun to explore in Battle for Bikini Bottom, but on a second time through, the magic of exploring each of these locales is gone, and exploration loses its charm. But a linear game like the SpongeBob movie game retains its appeal, and each area is just about as much fun as it was the first time around. While qualitatively these games are equal, SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom is more deserving of an impeccable reputation, but that's only because of what the game is and what it represents. The movie game is built around the quite fantastic SpongeBob SquarePants movie film, which it does an amazing service to, but Battle for Bikini Bottom is crafted around the influential and incredible intellectual property that is SpongeBob SquarePants, and because of that, I give it the retrospective edge. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm well aware it's been more than a year since I've posted anything, and this channel's pretty much dead at the moment. But I owe you guys at least this. I feel Revenge of the Flying Dutchman, Battle for Bikini Bottom, and the movie game represent the golden age of SpongeBob, and with only 2 of the 3 covered, there needed to be closure, so there it is. I had originally planned to look at so many more SpongeBob games, but in the early phases of making this video, life happened. My free time began to vanish, and I just couldn't seem to stay motivated to create anything. And after saying I was going to make a series of videos about SpongeBob games, I felt creatively trapped by a restraint I had created for myself. It was all in my head, no one was holding me to it, just myself. But I felt stuck, so I stopped. Now this isn't to say I don't like SpongeBob anymore, it's still one of my favorite shows ever, but limiting myself to consuming and talking about only SpongeBob-based media was not a good thing for me. But it's been a long time, and life took a pause recently, so I try to make the best of it by finishing what I started and posting this. With this video done, the future of this channel is whatever I feel like making it. Whatever I care to talk about and share is what I'll be posting from here on out. It'll be quite varied, but I don't really care. Thanks for listening to what I have to say. Sorry that went on for a bit. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more, consider subscribing. Have an awesome day, guys. Stay well.